Hello everyone, this is Mrs. Dubois, and I'm going to do the answer key for Practice 1, Math 8 for transversals. And this worksheet goes along with some of the vocabulary that you learned yesterday in the Desmos. All right? So if we just preview a little, if you have vertical angles, they look something like this. And then you have this angle here that meet at the vertex is congruent to this angle here. And congruent means that they have the same measure. Yesterday in the Desmos, you saw that alternate interior angles. Okay, this is just a sketch. So we take it as it is. Alternate means opposite sides of the transversal. And those angles are also congruent. To sketch a little linear pair, you take the first word line, okay, and these two angles, the green angle and the yellow angle, add up to 180. Corresponding angles, I'm just going to draw it down here, right? That deals with parallel lines in a transversal. Corresponding angles, there's several of them, and I'm just going to pick out one. They kind of sit in the same spot. See how this green angle, this one up here is it sits under the parallel line, and then the one that corresponds to it is on the same side of the transversal under the parallel line. 180 obviously is supplementary, or it's a linear pair. And then congruent is the fancy term for equal measure. All right, let's begin. So here we have a transversal. This is the transversal, and it is cut by two parallel lines. So we're going to pick one of the words from the word bank. So you have angle 2 is congruent to angle 3, and those are vertical. When you look at 1 and 5, the two yellow, they correspond, so they're corresponding. 3 and 6, they alternate, and they're inside the two parallel lines, so they're alternate interior angles. 7 and 8, they are adjacent and they form a linear pair. So 7 and 8 are a linear pair, and their measure adds up to 180 because they form a line, straight line. 5 and 4 are alternate interior angles, and therefore the angles are congruent. Another sign that you see for congruence looks like that too. It's like an equals with a little squiggly sign over it. Now we're going to take this information, alternate interior, corresponding, and such, and we are going to find the measure of angles. So this one right here, you have 50 and x, and 50 is right here, and x. So they're like sitting on top of the parallel lines. So they correspond to the same position. So they're corresponding. 60 right here, and x, they're like diagonally on that vertex, and they share a vertex. So they're vertical. Then you have x and 30, they alternate inside the parallel lines. So they're alternate interior angles. Down here, oh, and so I missed it. So this measure is 50 because they're congruent. This is 60, and this is 30. And we should have degrees there. All right, so next, right here, 70 and x, they form a linear pair. So it's 70 plus x, and a linear pair is 180. Ooh, voila, we have x, and then you have x is equal to 110. So 70 and x are a linear pair, and x equals 110, because 110 plus 70 equals 180. Up here on the top, we also have adjacent angles that form a linear pair. So 30 and x equal 180. So 30 plus x equals 180 to write my equation and then solve my equation. We get x is equal to 150 degrees, and these two angles are a linear pair. So, and the last set for this section, right, they are vertical. They're kind of on the diagonal and they share the same vertex. So they're vertical, they have the same measure, so this is 45 degrees. Next page. Okay, now we're getting a little more into the vocabulary and solving equations. So it tells you up the top, for examples 12 and 13, each set of angles presented below, their corresponding angles, and they are congruent because corresponding angles equal each other. So these are corresponding. They're like sitting in the same position on top of the parallel lines. So we know that they're equal to each other. We're going to set up our two-step equation, and you'll get 2x is equal to 140, and divide by 2. I know it's already solved, but to go through the motions. X is equal to 70 degrees. For example 13, again, they're corresponding, right? They're in the same position underneath the parallel lines, and we know that they are congruent. So we're going to set up our equation. 2x plus 30 equals 120. Then we're going to solve this two-step equation. And we get 2x is equal to 90. Keep going all the way. We're going to divide each side by 2. X is equal to 45 degrees. Oh, sorry, not degrees. We are just solving for x, so there's really not a degree on there. Of course, I'm going to go back up and erase it on here too. Okay, now 14 and 15, the angles presented are alternate exterior. Sorry, alternate interior. So they're on opposite sides of the transversal. They alternate and they're inside the parallel lines. And we know that they are congruent. So that means they are equal. So we have 8x minus 4 equals 60. Draw our line, add 4 to each side. We get 8x equals 64. Down to a one-step equation, divide each side by 8. X is equal to 8. Okay, and so we're still on alternate interior. This angle and that angle, they're on alternating sides of the transversal. And again, we know that these angles are congruent by definition. Let's solve our equation. Subtract 4. You'll get 6x is equal to 66. Divide by 6, and you're going to get x is equal to 11. In the next section, we have a linear pair, which means they form a line, because the word line is right in there, and pair means two, so it's two angles, and they happen to be two adjacent angles that form a line, and they add up to 180. So in this case, here they are, right? They form a straight line, and they're adjacent, meaning they're next to each other, and they add up to 180. So here you have 3x plus 30, and 7x equal 180. That makes them a linear pair. And when I solve out my equation, remember I have to simplify what's on the right, combine like terms, then I get a two-step equation, and I come down to x is equal to 15. All right. Again, these two angles are a linear pair. They are adjacent and they form a line. So we can set up our equation so that they equal 180. Draw a line, subtract 140. You're going to get 4x is equal to 40. Divide by 4. X is equal to 10. Okay, and this goes along with the decimals yesterday, introducing you to a geometry unit of when you have two parallel lines. This is the symbol used for parallel, and they're cut by a transversal. Thank you.